I'm really glad to be with you tonight. Tonight's presentation is an informal meeting to provide details from a number of sources in effort to assure an informed electorate. Let me establish a couple of ground rules going forward, because one of the things we want to do is make sure that we can have these presentations efficiently, and also make sure that the question and answer process moves efficiently so everybody's questions can be answered. First of all questions are to be submitted in writing on the cards that are available from the chamber representatives among you. We've got them back there on the table. We've got a big lucite bowl there that we're going to put them in and draw them at random. If you want a card, go back there and grab one. We've got pens available. Also, you can see any of the people that have the chamber shirts on, and I'm sure they'll be glad to help you as well. Having said that, no verbal questions or comments will be taken from the floor. This allows the most efficient manner of handling questions. If you have any material you'd like to offer people for or against the millage proposal, you have to place it on the table over there by the door. You'll see there's a lot of material over there already. We really don't want the distraction of people handing out material, and those in attendance will take the material that they want. One very important thing, I don't see it needed yet, but if anybody comes in that needs child care, we do have child care available in the gym. Coach Stacy Claude is kind of moving back and forth, and I really want to give a little bit of recognition to our Lady Pioneers. They do a lot in the community, and they volunteered to do the babysitting this evening for people that need child care. So when you see one of them, pat them on the back for all that they do in our community. I ask that everybody be respectful of our presenters, subject matter experts, and other people in the audience. And let me tell you about our presenters a little bit. From Beardsley Financial, we have Dan Lovelady and Scott Beardsley, and Jeff Gratis and Paul Hively and Jason Petrie from Apples Construction. Dr. Charles Stein, where's Dr. Stein? Okay, and Cal Miller are from the Arkansas Facilities Division. Gail Shepard is with Hythe Jackson Architect. So we've got all the disciplines covered here to be able to help bring all the information needed to you to make a great decision. At this time, I'll ask the presenters to share their information with you, after which we'll have 60 minutes for written questions and answers. So like I said, if you need a card, make sure that you flag us down or go back there and get a card and fill out your question, put it in the bowl. At 60 minutes, we have to end the meeting. All questions will be chosen at random from those that are presented to me. So with that, let me introduce Dr. Mindy Moss.
Thank you, Terry, and I want to thank the chamber for having such an event, because he's right. It's very important that everybody makes as informed a decision as they can. It's not a campaign meeting, so we're not going to do a lot of persuasion. We're just going to give the facts. And one of the things that I think everybody needs to know is, what will 4.9 mils generate, and what will we get out of those 4.9 mils? And so I have the conceptual drawings that I want to share, and I understand that I'm rather tethered to this microphone because the wireless was not available. So Gail, since she is very familiar with these drawings as well, is going to kind of be my Vanna tonight, and as we talk about things, she'll kind of point and direct your attention to certain areas. As you know, we're looking to remedy the problems that have become even greater in the last few years, and particularly since around 2005, when facility standards went into the place that really brought this to our attention at our junior high. And so the solution that we have come up with is one that I feel respects our voters, in that it is not asking for an extravagant all-new campus or anything like that. We have looked at existing space and the assets that we do have. We've looked at some issues that we know we have not only at the junior high but also with our high school facility, and we think this solves our problems in a very prudent way that respects our taxpayers without going out for 2.5 times the request to build an all-new campus. So with that said, we've had many tours of the junior high. They started back last late fall, and I see so many faces in the crowd that have been on those tours and have firsthand knowledge of what the junior high is like now. It is not handicapped accessible according to code. Right now we have students that must travel outside and around because of all the stairs and all the various levels on that campus, and actually into a city street at some point because of needing to get back on the ramp. The district owns the first couple of rows of parking, but most people don't realize that the rest of that belongs to the city, and there are some streets involved in what we're talking about. When the campus was built in 1950-51, it was inhabited. Pine Street was a 2-lane street. I found that out, I think, from Rod McCorkindale. And now it's a 4-lane state highway. So we have students that are about 20 feet away from a 4-lane state highway, and it's a very busy street, and I see some nods in the crowd. Some other issues with that is we have shown pictures and had tours that you see those tiered classrooms where they are leveled seating, and those were state-of-the-art back in the 50s when those were built. The desks are bolted to the floor, and the rooms are very small. The rooms are smaller than state standards for classroom space now. Plus, when you look at 21st century learning and project-based learning and the way that students are taught now, that configuration does not lend itself in any way to what is considered proper teaching for 21st century skills. There was also never a thought to electrical wiring to support computer technology when that campus was constructed. You will find a lot of those rooms that may only have 1 to 2 plugins. And what we are doing is we are plugging surge protector into surge protector into surge protector, trying to implement the PowerPoint technology that we have come to assume is standard, and computer technology, and now just more and more demand on that, and it is not, you're not able to get a Wi-Fi signal through there. We do the best we can, but it is just not serving our needs in many ways. The roof is done for. Harness Roofing makes visits there almost weekly, and they have patched and worked on that roof, and they have said there's just really no more good material to patch to. So we know that we would have to replace the whole campus roof system, which we have gotten quotes from Harness for, and that's an $800,000 price tag that we actually have submitted that project to state facilities. But the idea and the response from state facilities was we wouldn't qualify for partnership money on that project because it is not considered approved use of taxpayer funds. There is encapsulated asbestos there that is considered safe now. It's tied in with old boiler cistern and other things on that campus, but we can't remodel without going through the abatement process. And because of classroom size, we would have to bust out a lot of walls and reconfigure, and it's a rabbit hole of cost that is very hard to estimate as when you get into abatement, and no one will give you a quote on that because they really don't know till they get into it. So just like we've talked about your 1950 Studebaker, you know, at some point you put money into your car and you put money into your car and you put money into your car, but at some point you have to trade that car in. And we feel, and facilities has agreed with us, that that's pretty much where we're at. And so that's why we're coming to you tonight to propose a solution to these project problems and to hopefully stimulate the economic health of our community with families that we know are moving away because that's their first look at us and how we're serving our children. So with that, let's look at the plans. This is an aerial view of the middle school and the high school right now, but this shows the improvements. And I think actually I'd like to go to maybe, I guess that's here with me. Let's look at this one. This is the high school and what we're proposing. The areas in blue are current space. That's there now. And Gail, you've got your pointer thing. So if you look at the entrance, that'll orient you to the current high school.
Can everybody on that side of the room see? I'm sorry I can't do two.
There's one over here too. Okay.
But they can't see my
But what's in blue is current space. What is yellow is remodeled space with this plan. And what is white would be new addition. And you'll notice first the auditorium area and the band room and the choir room there in the high school. would be remodeled space that we could include classrooms, lab spaces, and some multi-use areas and office space there. What we know about the existing auditorium is that it has become too small to house all the events that we have there, and it would be too small to house the entire student body at one time. And the band room and the choir room have become too small at the high school because those are extracurricular programs that have grown and become extremely popular in our community, and they're out of place in there as well. So this kind of solves that problem at the high school with making good use of existing space that has become inadequate in other areas. It also adds then the classrooms on the end, which if you drive by the high school now, you see kind of some indentations a couple of ways in the end. It basically just evens up that roof line, and it gives us the classrooms that we would need to service our 9th graders. The other piece of that is a little yellow piece you see in the kitchen area. Because we would have another class for lunch, we would need to expand our kitchen. So that's taking in the concession portion and some locker room area of the gym that's there now. Then there's some courtyard remodel and a classroom remodel there, I think, Gail, right?
Yes, and that's possible location for when this concession stand goes away. We're trying to put something in there that can serve that existing gym.
Okay. And then in the white part, let's talk about that for a minute. There would be another entrance that's on the same level as where the high school ends now, and you could go in there. And the nice thing about that now, we get so many complaints of community having to walk all the way through our school and past classrooms and whatnot to access the auditorium or the gym now. This would allow us to lock off the rest of the building when we're having evening events there. And so it's basically a corridor, and then you have the auditorium, and which now will provide adequate seating to seat those grade levels and also be able to get our band on the stage, which we cannot do in the existing auditorium. And then you have the gym space, and we've consulted with Condition and Visitors Bureau, and also I think I saw Chris Pratt in the room a little bit earlier. I don't know if he said he was going to leave. He's checked with AAA, the Arkansas Activities Association, for what would be required if we were to host tournament events. So this meets those requirements. And if we could go to the next slide, I think that might be the downstairs area. I'm doing it. See, I'm used to having a clicker and walking around. This shows the downstairs area because basically it's built into that hillside that you see now between the high school and the middle school. And so it allows us to have kind of a walkout basement situation. And so downstairs you see the stage area because it's angled down. And then there is the band room and the choir room and a classroom, and we could use that for drama or language arts or whatever, and then a scene shop. And then if you go across, you see the areas that are needed for locker room, weight room, office space, and so forth. So, and one classroom there as well. Okay, so we'll look at the entrance, because right now there's not a good footprint to the high school. People get confused. I'm out there in the evenings. People are confused all the time about which one of those doors they need to go into, because if you remember, there's some double doors that are close to the cafeteria as well. So this sets apart what is the entrance and gives you an idea of what the front of the structure would look like. The pop out back there on the far end is the corridor leading into the auditorium and the gym space. Pardon? I got it. I'm thinking about it now. And then this would be the view from the middle school looking up the hill toward where the auditorium and the gym would sit. And the nice thing about this plan too is if you look at the middle school plan, the side on the far right as you're looking at it would be the 7th and 8th grade side, and that would be in close proximity to those practice spaces as well, so that the band and the choir, when they wanted to, could utilize that easily as well. So at the middle school, what Harry Branch told me when that middle school was built, he said the middle school was built with growth in mind. And he used to take me on a tour and he would point out where the pods were and where the open spaces were and what was looked ahead to as far as enrollment growth. And so it lends itself very well to this project. Again, the blue is the existing space, the yellow is remodeled space, and the white is additional space. And you will see that we are adding classrooms on either end, and on the right-hand side, there's an art room, there's a family and consumer science room, because we know by the time they get to be 7th and 8th graders, they're taking some specialty classes as well as the typical core classes. And then remodeled band and music space there. And then choir room is what she's pointing to now, because our 7th and 8th grade choirs are quite large. And then the space out to the right of that is a FEMA safe room. We are currently in the process of getting a hazard mitigation plan approved. That's a rather lengthy process. The county never wrote a hazard mitigation plan. So you may have heard about safe rooms in other part of the state, but Boone County's never been eligible to apply because for whatever reason, the county never wrote a mitigation plan. So we found out about a year and a half ago, about a year and a half or so ago, that we could form consortiums as Boone County school districts and write a hazard mitigation plan. And boy, when we found that out, we were on it, because I've been wanting safe rooms for quite some time. And I know with Joplin's new build, they're getting a safe room on every campus, but it's a process. And we're hoping that the timing of this would work out to where perhaps even FEMA grant funds would be available about the time that we are getting into the construction phase of this project. So it's great timing for that as well. And that's built for Standards to be a tornado shelter. It's an asset to the whole community because even at night, if there were warning sirens going off, those doors would open and the community that could get there could get in there and use that. And so this can also double as PE space. You can't put a lot of stuff in one because of its purpose. You can't have stuff blowing around or whatever. You want people to be able to crowd in there. But it makes great PE space. And all students have to take PE, and we have health classes, and there's a lot more going on in these gyms than just a competitive sports event. And we need that space, particularly if the 7th and 8th graders move to that campus. But my dream is that we could keep expanding those safe rooms with additional FEMA grants as funding allowed. So that's what that space is out to the right. What have I forgotten, Bill? The road, that's on the aerial view. Okay, anything with this plan? Okay. We would put 5th and 6th that are there now on one side, and we would put the 7th and 8th grade on the other, and they wouldn't have to necessarily mix that much because of the way it's configured, and I know that's been a concern for some. This would be what the ends of those buildings would look like, and you can see we still have space to the road. We're not encroaching on that sidewalk there, and it looks like it was meant to be there all the time. Now, one thing I forgot to point out at the high school, if I may go back, one more. Well, maybe not one more. There we go. The roof at the high school has some problems too. So along with this plan, as the project developed, we decided that it was going to be prudent to re-roof that whole facility. And I see Josh sitting in the back, and he can talk about work orders and problems with that roof as well. So within this plan is now a re-roofing of the whole facility, as well as some upgrades and replacement of some HVA systems that have exceeded their expected life, and we have one that's completely conked out at this point. So this would allow us to remedy some HVAC issues at the high school as well. So this is the one you said, the road. The road's important. I've had a lot of people ask me as we've gone around to different civic groups and organizations, what about the traffic flow on Goblin Drive? And I think that is a valid concern, but it's not a concern that we are ignoring. We met with the city planners long before we started putting the final cost estimates to this, And one of the things they are asking us to do is to build a road behind the high school that would connect down to the middle school and then go out Burles Way. That will take all the bus traffic off of Godwin Drive. Right now, you'll see there's a gazillion ways to get on and off each of these parking lots, and none of them are really marked as what's an entrance and what's an exit, and people are going every which way out there, and it's not efficient. And plus, we have buses pulling onto the lot, then they're mixing with car traffic, dropping off students, and that's never a safe situation. And then they're pulling back onto Godwin Drive, then they're going a few feet down the hill, they're pulling back into the middle school, again, they're mixing with car traffic at the front, and then they're unloading, and then they're pulling back onto Godwin Drive again. That causes an extreme amount of congestion. So with this, that part in the back, you can see is the road. Right now, there's just kind of a little gravelly, chewed up pavement lane back there. We would improve that part, plus extend that road, and then we would have a way out Burles Way for all of our bus traffic, and that would alleviate some problems. Also, when this passes, one of the first things we're going to do is there's a firm that specializes in traffic studies. We're going to utilize them to tell us what we need to do to those front parking lots, because we know it's not the best system, but we don't have the expertise to know, is there an entrance we need to close off? Do we need to double sweep in an entrance and double sweep one out? If so, where does that happen? At first glance, most have agreed that that median in front of the entrance that's grassy and treed area now, that really cuts off that upper lot and that lower lot and makes it kind of inefficient. And so that could even possibly go away with a sweep through there. You'll also notice that there's a yellow space back there beside the proposed gymnasium, and that is also parking and turnaround area. So that should help as well. Or did I leave out? I get up here and I get to talking and I forget things. No? Okay, good deal. So, it is a 4.9 request, and at the time of bond issue, depending on interest rates, and that's why I've got these gentlemen here with me, because they're the experts, and I want them to be able to answer your questions for financial and all the other aspects. But depending on interest rates, we anticipate that it can generate around $27 million for the project. And so we are prepared to design to what the bond issue will generate, and a little bit of answer to what that could mean to you with your home. Whatever your assessed property comes out to for every $100,000 of assessed property that you have, that would be about $98 per year, or $8.17 a month. And with that, I think Dr. Stein had some information for us in terms of Arkansas State Facilities, and maybe how we kind of arrived at this point in some issues of facilities requirements. So I'll turn that over to you.
Thank you very much. Cal Miller's with me here. Cal Miller serves as the maintenance person we have, and so he has seen all of these schools very much. Mine is really about laws and rules and about a process here. So we'll look at the overall law that placed me, I guess, in the Cal laws we have, and also look at all of laws and statutes. Several years ago, schools wanted more money. And so some of those school districts sued the state, and they won. So the overall bottom line was they sued the state to provide them more money. Now the problem though is, you know, if the state provides you some money, then they'll have some laws and some new rules. Part of those laws established where Cal and I work now to provide the oversight of all school districts. So that's why we're here. Tonight, three main rules and laws we have will be those we'll mention here briefly. Master plan rule lays out the overall process of them doing the plans. Partnership is we're able to provide some matching money. Plus also we'll mention the express process as far as mailing votes. A timeline really as far as the overall master plan. You need to realize that the process really runs in 2-year timelines. And so there's some mandated timelines as far as provided master plan, plus some timelines there as far as the state. And so we're in the 15-17 cycle now as far as the timeline. And so school districts provided a master plan starting off this year, and then in March of this year they provided the applications really as far as new projects. And so we mailed letters several months ago as far as the status of all those, and you're having your election vote soon. Main date is here in May 1 of next year. May 1 of next year is when we will know the actual money to provide. As far as master plans, law and rule again lay out parts of that. And so the law says master plans shall have, and it's a whole long list of pieces here. And so we have, name those pieces tabs. And some of the main ones as far as the master plan is where projections of students, which is a big deal, plus the narrative analysis, plus the overall list of projects. In my view, this portion here of the plan is the main one. In other words, school districts tell us using words they have, the actual needs they have, plus their plan as far as addressing those needs. Now, part of the rule tells us school districts they must provide some words telling us how they'll address the buildings that have 0% of value. Now again, our process is we assign a life of 50 years to a building, taking off a 2% per year. So once you have 50-year life, then you've reached zero value. Now, our process is saying you must tell us then your plan as far as those. Now, they realize lots of buildings with their zero value still have many years of life left. Perhaps some do and some don't. And as far as the values you have, these here show those values we have where they have a zero value of life or less. And so again, law and rule made them tell us their plan to address those zero value buildings. Now their plan was, you learned, was to replace these buildings. Okay, our process then we have, if somebody says we need to replace a building, well, then we need seeing those and inspecting those buildings to assure that's prudent. So Cal Miller plus more team members inspected those in May. That process of inspections is they look at all of the systems and subsystems to see if those systems need replacement or not. And once they have seen all those systems, then we sum the overall cost in to provide new building systems. Now, our process is we look at the overall cost to provide new building systems compared to the actual new building cost. So we have learned nationally it's the cost of renovating the building, which is 65% of the new value. It's not prudent to spend money on all those systems. So that I mentioned Cal Miller and one more team member inspected all of those buildings. And so we had a value of 99%, meaning the actual value to replace all those systems there, roof, the HVAC, plumbing and all those, was essentially the same value as the big building. Plus, we also saw a lot of classroom spaces were less than standards now. And so our position now, seeing all that, is that we believe that's not prudent to spend any money on these buildings. So as far as the partnership program to provide money, that again runs in 2-year cycles, and so every 2 years we have provided roughly 200 some odd $1 million per 2-year cycle. Okay, our process of sharing the cost, though, is based on a value of wealth. And so we look at your value of $1 million per student compared to the actual 95th percentile value. And so we run these values yearly. And so your value now is around 75%, so meaning as far as the state portion, then state's portion is around 25%. Our process then is seeing the overall project, scope and size, time some project cost we have for to see the overall project cost, and then we have some way of sharing value. Part of the program process that goes around money. So far these past 6 years, we have been very lucky to have had the money to provide the projects that needed money. Our projection now as we move ahead to next May, though, is we're projecting more needs than money. And so the process in rural then lays out some way to provide a ranking to all these projects. And so projects are all ranked, and then money is used, and as long as money is available, those guys receive money. I'm telling you, as far as replacing school buildings, yours are all here in this third one. So here is the portion here we all want to know about, I guess, and nobody really wants to tell you much about. In other words, tell us the process. Let's assume the millage vote does not pass. Tell us then the process then. And so per law and per rule, we have a process we have to start if somebody's millage vote does not pass. And so that process is we would mail you a letter in 10 days and say we need to meet. And so the purpose then of that meeting then would be to see now the actual needs you have, to make some plan then to satisfy those needs. Now, part of the process, once we have those needs listed and once we have some plan established, part of that process we may say you need another millage vote. Plus, part of the overall process now in meetings is we have to tell you about sanctions that may occur should you move to the express status. Now, nobody's saying you're near that status now anyway. But part of the process is, though, we have to tell you all of those sanctions that may happen. And so again, nobody's threatening you in any way. It's part of the law and rule. So should you move to the distress status, meaning there's some needs you need addressing, and you have no plan really and no money. And so should you move in that status, you actually may lose the superintendent, you may lose the school board, you may have the state take over running your district. And then the next one is really for most people, I'd say now you're really meddling in our business. And this one here is we found some needs you have in your schools, and there's really no plan you have of addressing those as far as timeline and money-wise. And so we would provide you a loan to address all of those needs. Now, the problem is, how do we pay that? And so the process is you repay that, canceling things above the minimum standards of 38. And so that means, bottom line, is you lose all your sports program, perhaps you may lose your music and band, some of those things. Last one here, I guess, is the absolute worst one, where the actual state board may make you consolidate. Those are mine. Thank you very much.
All right, I want to thank our presenters, and we now have a number of questions here. I'm just going to draw them out at random.
Are there more questions? Does everybody have any questions in that one?
If there are more, we'll have people come around with cards, and we can have them. Okay, the first question, I'll just ask the appropriate person to answer it, please. Is there an issue with asbestos in the areas where the water leaks in from the roof? Who can best take that question?
I think that would probably be me, but is Josh still back there?
If y'all have the microphone so that we can hear it again.
Josh, are you aware of any in the roof system at this point?
We're not aware. We, of course, have a state-mandated test for asbestos inspections and things like that. We keep an asbestos file. We keep it at the admin building and my office as well. And every year on our 5-year and our 3-year, we've always been cleared that we've been safe, and all asbestos is still encapsulated.
As far as the roof system is concerned?
Yes.
Yes, thank you.
Thank you. If the millage fails, how soon can we hold another election?
I want Dan to correct me if I'm wrong, but it is my understanding that schools can hold a millage election once per calendar year. So we are in the fall of 2014. So if a group could get together and go forth with a second plan or the same plan, then that election would probably occur in the spring of 2015, but you get one per calendar year.
By the way, I was informed that representatives from the assessor's office and the tax collector's office are also here. So thank them for being here, and we have a good way to answer all these questions. Okay, somebody flunked penmanship. What will these additions be used for if computerized instruction at home takes over from the classroom built for this purpose?
Well, it's no secret at all that digital learning is expanding. And the Digital Learning Act, and I believe that was 1280 of the last legislative session, did start requiring high schools to offer online courses. But I don't think the majority of the parents in the room would say that we are ready to abandon public school districts and public school buildings as we know them today. Is it changing the way we teach? Absolutely. Are we offering some online courses within our campus? Yes, but we still need computer labs. It actually increases our necessity for computer labs and digital learning options, which makes the junior high problematic for another reason, because it wasn't ever conceived to build it for that purpose. But no, I do not think that the increased use of digital learning is going to replace public school buildings across Arkansas. Does it change the way we teach? Absolutely.
You talked about the cafeteria for the high school. How about the additional students at the middle school? Is there a new cafeteria there?
No, the cafeteria that's at the middle school is adequate, and I know that Mr. Wilson has already shared, there you are, has already shared with me his plan for a rotation, and so without going into great detail, our current cafeteria is more than adequate to serve the 5th, 6th, and 7th, 8th, the middle school.
The junior high has had decades of neglect. What did previous administrations do to maintain the buildings?
Well, I would probably argue with that statement that it's had decades of neglect. The junior high building is what it is, and it has aged. When we moved back, I think Dr. Ader shared this at the foundation dinner, was that a 1914 or 19, I forget what he said, the museum, when they picked up their books and they walked across in January of 1951 to the one we're in now, that was 40-some years old, and now we're in one that's 60-some years old. And I actually had Josh do this. He pulled work orders because that is a question that has come up a lot in terms of why have you not maintained that facility. Well, looking back last year, we had 589 work orders, and those must be completed and closed out, and that was a way higher number of work orders, and it can be anything from electrical to plumbing to HVAC to roofing. We have maintained that building, but just like you take your car to the mechanic, at some point that car has become so old that you are pouring more and more and more money into something, and that is taxpayer money. That is your money that is fulfilling all those work orders and replacing those systems and fixing leaky pipes and the things that break. If we were to look at remodeling that facility, the standards are such that if I remodel 20% of that campus, we must bring the entire campus to code. Now, Dr. Stein has talked a little bit about depreciations and percentages, and after you hit 65%, it's no longer prudent to keep pouring money into it. We're talking elevators, we're talking asbestos abatement, we're talking a lot of expense that actually could very easily exceed what we're asking for today. So we are maintaining that campus, and if you go look at that, yes, it's an eyesore, and you will see the exposed wiring and the old pipes and the old boiler system and the heating hanging units that maybe we're not using those anymore, but we can't pull them out of the wall because if we do, we're into abatement. And so that's why all that stuff is there, and that's why it looks like it's dilapidated and we haven't maintained it. We are facing the issue of replacing the roof, and we have replaced the roof on that gym, because that gym is only one of 3 gyms that 2,750 kids are serviced with across this district. All kids take PE. All kids need health and wellness activities. So we know we have done that roof because whatever happens, we're still going to be using that gym because of gym space. But I kind of take a little umbrage when people say we haven't maintained it, because I know 589 work orders last year, and we're 3 weeks into school now, and we've already had 91 work orders at the junior high. So I know how hard these guys are working, and to say they're not maintaining it is really, really not fair to them.
The next question that I drew really takes kind of a personal shot at one of the people sitting among you in the audience, and it bears no relevance to the questions of what goes on with the millage in the school. So as moderator, I'm going to take my responsibility to set this one aside. How much money to date has been spent by the school district for architectural, bonding, financial, and engineering services?
I'm assuming that that question relates to the proposal that's in front of you now and not years past, but we have spent no money for those services. These folks are participating in the pre-construction activities for free, and they are completely at risk in terms of whether this millage passes, and so we have not spent any money on their services at this point.
Will the additional millage affect my 52-inch big screen TV and riding lawnmower, as been said by groups opposing the millage?
Is the assessor or the collector in the room?
I think I can answer that one. We do not assess individuals' TVs unless you are a Holiday Inn Express or Comfort Inn. Now that would come under your commercial assessment. And you would assess your TV, and if you're the country club, you will assess your lawnmower, but you won't as a private taxpayer.
And so it's if the 52-inch TV or lawnmower relates to that business directly. If that's their business, then they would. Okay.
So my wife won't be lobbying for a smaller television. Thank you. Otherwise, you were missing. Why does the district need a new gym and auditorium?
Well, I think that question was kind of answered as we were going through our presentation. As I said, we have approximately 2,750 students, and we are servicing all those PE and health classes right now with 3 gyms. And if you look at some of the materials that I think the campaign committee has put back there, they even have a chart that shows the number of gyms for districts of like size. And you will see that we are by far and away the lowest gym count of any school on that list. And by adding the gym that is in the proposal as well as the safe room, that merely brings us to still probably within the bottom third of that proposal. So we need the gym. We've needed the gym for a long time. We've got doubled up PE classrooms. We are borrowing gym space from the youth center. We are going to area churches at times. And I have buildings that are having PE in hallways and cafeterias. And that's just not acceptable for me. And then as far as the auditorium is concerned, because the auditorium is small now and we can't get our band all on the stage, and when we have events it's standing room only, we can turn that space into very usable space for classroom space, make it adequate in that respect, and then go out with an auditorium that will more adequately seat the people that we needed to seat, and also get our performing arts groups, our band, our choir and such on that stage, and do it with the technology that is available now.
Do voters know the extent of the school district? Many without children don't necessarily know that they live in the district and will be eligible to vote.
Anyone within the Harrison School District can vote, and anybody that's not sure whether they're in the district, all you have to do is look at your personal property tax statement, and I see some nods, and it says what district those tax funds are going to. As I have said numerous times, this is your school. Whether you have children in it or not, it affects your economic health. It affects the value of your home. It affects the goods and services that are offered in this town. Because as so goes the district, typically so goes the community. It's your kids, it's your school, it's your community, whether you have kids in this district or not. And if your tax statement says Harrison School District, then you can vote in this election.
Do district residents know that the millage, if passed, will apply to all property and must be assessed? All property that must be assessed. That includes all vehicles, livestock, farm implements, etc.
I would assume that they would know that because it's on their tax statement each year. So I would think so.
I believe this one's been answered already. It says what happens if the millage vote fails, eligible for another vote within a year. Anything you want to add to that? Why is it stated that the junior high building is 65 years old when in reality many new additions have been made?
Well, I think the 1951 is the date that most people point to because that's when people moved into that campus and that's when it was declared the new high school in 1951. It's true, there are other portions of that campus that are different. We've got the armory out there that serves as our cafeteria and as well as classroom space. We have several classrooms out in the armory. It's actually older than 1951. It was built like around the 30s and then served, I know Pam has told me her dad staged out of there during World War II and Korea. So there is a long history of service to our community with that armory building that's out there. We do have some other additions, and the most recent one was in 2001, and it was, I wish I had a picture of that, but I didn't bring it. There is a hallway that connects the office area to the gym. When I went to school there in 1981, that was outside space, and you crossed across to use the gymnasium. But in 2000, probably 1999, 2000, and I wish Dr. Adair was here because he can talk to me about it too. The district was about to lose their accreditation. And they were about to lose their accreditation because of science labs, is what I'm told. And so in order to avoid that and add a computer lab, because they didn't have anything like that, they did that L-shaped hallway that is next to the office and the gym to add some requirements there. So you're right, we always say 1951, but there are numerous years attached to that, with 2001 being the latest, and that was to take care of an accreditation issue, is what I've been told.
Why was Napholt selected as construction manager instead of a local contractor?
Okay, that's a question that we've heard a lot too. We honor our local contractors. We have had a lot of good service from many of our local contractors and continue to use our local contractors on projects. We put an RFP out and we advertised for it. We had a whole bunch of people apply, and we had some local as well as some larger groups apply for that. We went through a matrix that we scored those applications. We went through a process of interview, and through that, Napholtz was selected. Napholtz had the bonding capacity to handle a project of this size. They also had a record of having built numerous auditoriums, gymnasiums, and the biggest thing for me was the safety of our students while we're building this project, because we will be staging this and planning this out while we're still serving kids. So it's extremely important to me to have somebody that has experience doing that and doing that on the scale of this project. And Napholtz just completed, I think you've completed your project with Fayetteville, or if not, you're real close. And they have staged that remodel and addition right alongside kids. And there's been a complete safety record and a really good rapport from the Fayetteville School District in terms of minimal disruption to the education during the year. And so we felt like we needed somebody that could get this done with quality and experience, and through that process, Napholtz was selected.
I believe Dr. Stein addressed this, but let me ask the question. Why is renovating the junior high not an option?
There's a lot to say about that. I think it would all be kind of redundant at this point, but Dr. Stein talked about the percent values and at what point does your Studebaker need to be replaced rather than have money poured into it. 589 work orders last year and 91 already in the first 3 weeks of school speak to that very well, I think.
Okay. How does our millage rate compare to other school districts?
Well, we can talk about that in terms of several ways, and I think, Dan, if I get can get some very specific information from you, but the districts across the state, if you look at all districts across the state, the current average is 37.47. We're at 34.3 now. With this project, we would be at 39.2. If you look at districts of like size, and we usually compare our conference schools to that, then the millage rate is actually higher than it will be if this passes, right? The average? Or close to that. Scott, you're looking like you know.
Well, we're at the bottom of the pack and we'll reach the middle.
Okay. Okay, did you hear what he said? We're at the bottom of the pack, we'll move to the middle with this.
Some students are currently being bused to the high school for AP classes. Could they not take these classes via video and computer?
Well, we have our curriculum director here with me, and I don't think that we have those courses available online through AP. Is that correct, or we have some
We
that?
have some through AP at the high school,
Right,
but they are, there's pretty strict rules about who we have in those classrooms, and we really don't serve AP junior high students.
right. We have some pre-AP courses, but we don't have AP at the junior high. So are we busing students to the high school from the junior high for AP?
Well, very few, we've had some exceptions, you always
Okay.
differentiate, and there are exceptions to every rule, and we've had just a very.
Okay, like a handful. Because I didn't know we were busing any for
Even
AP.
less than that, it was to serve some very exceptional cases.
Okay, and another thing that we're having happen, and this is a problem of having ninth graders separate from the high school, because ninth graders are high school freshmen. And what we're having now is when students move into our district, particularly if they move in at semester, or they move in after they've been a few weeks into their schedule, they are coming from traditional high schools where ninth grade is housed with 10, 11, 12. And so we are not making those students drop those credits. That would not be fair to that student, but to keep them in their current schedules that they're transferring in with, a lot of times we are having to bus kids back and forth every hour on the hour. And it's simply because you can't duplicate all those classes on both campuses. So this would greatly cut down on the busing, and it influences the students that are transferring back and forth on average about 8 to 10 instructional minutes per class in lost instructional time as they're going back and forth.
Okay, the next one drawn is really more of a statement of how somebody feels you should vote rather than a question, so I'm going to disregard this one. It's kind of like Jeopardy, you have to put it in the form of a question. This one's addressed to Dr. Stein. Is the state willing to continue to partner on further repairs to the junior high facility?
No, the answer is no. Our perception is to spend more money there is not prudent.
Can you explain why schools in our area like Bergman, Valley, etc. have lower millage rates but nice facilities?
It's kind of a two-part question. I think we're going to break that down. As far as having nice facilities, you know, Harrison has nice facilities. If you look at our elementary schools, you look at our middle schools, you look at our high school, our other facilities compare quite well to our neighbors, and then I would say probably compare better than a lot of our neighbors at Valley Springs or Bergman. And they're honorable schools. I don't mean any disrespect at all. But what we're talking about is the junior high. The junior high does not compare favorably to our neighbors. Now, I do know, and I have this one on the top of my head because I was asked this the other day about Bergman. Bergman's partnership rate is 69%, if I remember correctly. And you saw in the slides, Harrison's partnership rate is 24%. So when they have built, like Bergman built their new elementary, because of the assessed dollars that are behind every student and what a mill generates in Harrison is going to be different from what a mill generates in Bergman, then of course there's more partnership money to equalize that out. So that's why you see disparate numbers that are sometimes hard to understand, because the facilities group has been able to partner with those schools more at different rates higher than Harrison because of what a mill will generate. So that's about, I think, the best I can answer that one.
What will happen to the junior high building if the millage passes?
Well, that's a question I would like anybody in this room to be able to answer for me at some point, because it's still an asset. It's still taxpayer-funded facility. And the first thing we would try to do is we would try to sell that, because there are very stringent rules and guidelines for what you can do with a public school facility. So I would like to sell it. And the other day at the Lions meeting, that was asked that very type question, what would you do with it? And I said, well, I'm looking for good ideas. I'm really looking for good ideas. But when I mentioned sell it, they laughed. And they said nobody would buy it. And I said, okay, then if nobody would buy it at whatever price market value is for that place, why is it okay to still send all our kids there? So.
Please explain in detail how this proposal will impact or enhance student learning and academics.
Well, we talked about the credit issue, and we talked about the fact that right now we're housing 9th graders, which are high school freshmen, apart from the rest of the high school. I had Mr. Keister and Jay Parker do some research for me last night, and they told me that our 3-year average, and they shared the AMO reports, the 3-year graduation rate average for our district is about 81.25%. Now, we are a high academic performing school. We score in the top 10% across so many categories across the state. Our test scores are not an issue. But what is an issue is by the time these kids are getting to 9th grade and they're still housed in the junior high facility and they're bussing back and forth, they're not feeling integrated into a high school environment. And I do think that this is causing some impact on our graduation rate, because as high as our achievement is, an 81% graduation rate is not acceptable to me. And I know that we have put all kinds of programs in place, like the alternative school, and I see Katie nodding her head, and different things. We are trying to combat that. But for whatever reason, we're losing kids as they transition, because I don't think their heads are in the credit game as 9th graders, that this counts on my diploma, that I'm getting credits toward a high school diploma, because they don't feel like a high schooler until they get to high school. And so I think the graduation rate is a real conversation our community needs to be having for how to improve that graduation rate. Also, we know that we're having 7th and 8th graders in a 7-period day where they are going outside, in and out, all around, over to the armory, back over to the band room, back over to the high part of the 1951 area and the 2001 area, and then they're going back out for another class. And that is not the best situation for a 7th grader. So I watched those 6th graders come from that nurturing, warm, middle school, team environment. Why are you laughing? And then I watch them on parent and orientation night at the junior high. And these deer in the headlight panic looks, and how do I find my classes, and how am I going to deal with this? And I know you're laughing because you've been there. They are being forced into more of a traditional high school, old junior high type schedule, and they're not developmentally equipped for it yet. And with being able to do what we showed you on the middle school, and I think you've got some drawings here that you can look at in more detail, we will be able to start looking at a more modified team approach to those 7th and 8th graders when they're reaching a critical developmental stage in their life. This is the adolescent time that's very difficult for kids. And if we can put them in a middle school environment, which they've enjoyed as 5th and 6th graders, then it not only helps the graduation rate of our 9th graders, but I think it will help the attitude going forth and the work ethic and the nurturing that they need at the middle school as well.
Will the concrete bleachers in the existing high school gym be removed?
No.
A real expression of discomfort. All right. Please address the idea that the district has put off addressing the issues with the junior high too long, and is now the price tag is higher.
Well, I'm not quite sure how to interpret that question. The idea that the district has put off addressing the issues at the junior high too long, and now the price tag is higher. I guess I could interpret that to mean we should have built a new campus earlier. Because building costs do go up each year. And it's common sense that 20 years ago, if we had built a new campus, it would cost less than if we built it today. We are continuing to maintain that. We've talked about that through work orders and whatnot. I don't know that anyone would have ever thought putting elevators into that campus, dealing with the abatement issues. I think the same issues we're facing today, we would have faced a decade ago. So building costs do increase, and if we continue to kick this problem down the road, and kick the can down the road, as they say, they'll be even more expensive in another year or 2 years. Plus, interest rates, if you've been following interest rates at all, interest rates are historically low. And the longer we wait on this, unless you think interest rates are going to continue to stay low and drop, which if I had a crystal ball on interest rates, that'd be great. But the people that I talked to, and Dan and Scott, we've talked about this. We're just praying that by the time we go to issue bonds, they're still as low as they are. And if we kick this down the road to when we can have another election, and we kick it down the road to when we can do something else, it is going to be higher. And could we have built a new campus 10 years ago cheaper? Yes. Would the community have been in a position to do that better than they are now today? I don't know, but the time is now. We're here, and I can't do anything about what wasn't done 15 years ago, or 10 years ago, or even 5 years ago, but the question's before us now.
Another question addressed to Dr. Stein, and I believe it was covered in his remarks, but let me give you a chance to further explain. Dr. Stein, at the meeting on August 14th, when pressed, you said you never said the district must get out of the junior high. Please take this opportunity to explain what your department's position is.
So again, the process would be if the mayor's vote does not pass, well then we actually start the process to see the actual needs. And so we would have the fire marshal and more state people tell us the actual the need there in those school buildings. Now, my point is, now I can't tell you the actual result from that process. Now, my perception is that having seen those school buildings, we would make you provide some work. And some work may mean some renovations. May mean replacing them. And until we actually proceed down the actual process, though, we don't know really. But summary is, we believe you would have to perform some work there. And again, we believe that performing work there is not prudent money use.
Thank you. Why has the district chosen to use a construction manager who has experience building gyms, auditoriums, and remodeling schools while in session?
I think you already addressed that.
I think I already addressed that. Because they do have that experience and they have done it successfully, and there's a track record there.
Why is there only one plan on the board? What happened to the money to maintain the junior high?
The money to maintain the junior high has been spent, and we're still spending money to maintain the junior high. I don't think I have anything to add to that.
And this goes along the same lines, you can comment on it or we'll move on. Does the junior high need to be replaced because the districts failed to maintain it?
Ask and answer.
I think it's been addressed. Can the local construction industry business still benefit from this project?
Absolutely, and we are actually holding a meeting that has been heavily advertised through the Home Builders Association and Facebook and the newspaper. I saw the ad in the newspaper. Tomorrow at 11:30, there is a meeting for contractors and suppliers and those that would have interest. It's going to take place at Meeks Building Center. Lunch is provided, and these gentlemen will be there. And it is just for that express purpose to talk about when this passes. What is the bid process? How does that work? We want to get our local contractors as knowledgeable and ready to go as we can, because construction management is one thing. It's the management and the phasing of this, but the actual systems and things that go into that building is still wide open, and every aspect of this will be bid. And I've heard Tabitha say this many times at her campaign meetings, is Namholtz has a record of, was it 80% typically? What was that percentage? That you've been, yes. Yes, less than 10% of the project, and then 80% of this is wide open, and we want good, competitive bids, and if at all possible, we do want to use our local contractors.
Looks like we stay in the contractor vein here. Why can't the project be broken up into smaller phases to be managed by local contractors whose bonding capacity is lower than 27 million?
Okay, that has come up a lot, and I think that's been something that some people had desired, was rather than have this as one project, let's phase this, or let's bust this into a whole lot of little projects so that construction management could occur with some of our local contractors. Part of it is a timing issue. Dr. Stein put up the dates and the process, and what we're facing with the roof is an issue that we have talked about. Interest rates, we need to get this thing done now. And the very question that asks, why didn't you do this sooner so it's cheaper? Well, the longer this thing drags out, the more expensive it's going to be. The other thing that I know is that there is an economy of scale by having one project under one construction management, because there's usually a sliding scale on those construction managements. And you look at small projects we've had in town, like the Argus Bank, out by Diamond Head and Home Depot area, the construction management fee on that was 6%. Well, that's a lot less, or a lot more than the construction management fee percentage on this if the village passes. So you get an economy of scale. Plus, we are doing this while kids are in session, while we're moving students on and off that campus and instructing during the school day. And if I have a whole bunch of different managers out there moving their equipment on and off, depending on what other projects they've got going on, then it's not a coordinated effort, and it would not be in the interest best for not only our taxpayers, but I think not in the best interest of the safety of our children either.
This is a redundant question. What will happen if this does not pass? We already addressed that one. What about the traffic on Goblin Drive? How will it be managed after adding all the extra students?
We did talk about that, but I don't mind to reiterate that again. If you look at the aerial view, and we had it on the screen and it's also on the easels, there is a road that the city has talked to us about building across the back that will pull that bus traffic off of Goblin Drive, and then we will look at reconfiguring those lots to make that more efficient in the front as well. Now, I can't speak for the city, because the city has had, within their long-term plans, a widening of Goblin Drive for quite some time. But that's city responsibility, and you'd have to talk to our city leaders about what they intend to do with Goblin Drive.
From an economic development standpoint, what is the financial impact to our community for this project?
Was it Paul that we were talking about this, and how many times typically a project turns over? And Patty, you had shared some information with the chamber, and I see you nodding. But is it typically that a project turns over in a community about 7 times? Okay, good. I thought I remembered it was about 7. So this brings job and industry to our town. We're buying goods and services through this project. And I think we can also talk about the economic impact of when this thing is completed and the attractiveness of our community to families that are considering moving here. I hear testimonials since this conversation started, and I was startled. I didn't realize how bad it was. But I've heard from Pace, I've heard from FedEx, and I see nods of FedEx people in the room. And the realtors have definitely talked about this as they show property in our town. That junior high is hurting our ability to sell homes. Now, we are performing academically very well, and I'll stand up against Branson and some of our other outlying communities any day, and I'll put our test scores up against them any day. We do well. Our band, all that is doing phenomenal. But they don't know us yet. And so when they go into that junior high, they say, oh, I know all this stuff about you, but I can't put my kids there. And most recently, at the chamber board meeting, it was shared by a FedEx executive. They brought an executive into town. This is just one of a gazillion stories I've heard, but it's the most recent one I've heard. About 3 weeks ago, they came to town. The executive with FedEx had 3 children. 2 of them were junior high age. John Sherman had been talking up our campus and telling him how great Harrison schools were and how wonderful it was going to be. He came back after he went to the junior high and he said, John, I can't do it. And John, oh, but, you know, what about this one? He goes, I know, John, you're telling me this stuff, I know, but I can't put my kids in this quote, just kills me because junior high teachers are rocking it. But he said, I can't put my kids in that dump. And they moved to Branson. And he's driving to Harrison every day. He's pulling a salary out of our local business, and they are buying their groceries in Branson. They are paying their sales tax in Branson. They bought a house in Branson. There's for sale signs all over this town. We need to be selling some homes, and we need to be attracting people to our town. And I think this is a pivotal point for our community.
How did the district arrive at 4.9 mils?
Well, we had many conversations about the scope of the project and also the pressure to keep this under 5 mils because we don't want to ask our taxpayers for a penny more than we have to. And so we are designing to what 4 mils will give us and getting what we have to have. We don't want a Cadillac. We're looking for a good Chevy. And this is not excessive, it's just adequate. And it's simply what it costs.
Hopefully these have been addressed, but I'll give you a further opportunity. What are some of the reasons the junior high campus is inadequate? Anything you want to add?
Well, let's see. Handicapped accessibility is a huge issue. And again, now that we're taking the blinders off and we're exposing, because for a while, you know, let's not talk about it too much, but handicapped accessibility is huge. And I was there on the first day of school, and here came this girl with an ACL injury on crutches. You know how self-conscious junior high kids are. Everybody's looking at them, and furthermore, everybody cares. And she was not about to use a wheelchair. And that poor little gal, it was hot. She was on those crutches. She was trying to make her way outside from the office down that ramp that runs the whole length of the junior high gym into that city street until she could get down to that first opportunity to get on a sidewalk, because her first hour class was choir. And I will tell you, she got about a third of the way there. Her mom was trying to help her by pulling her cart on wheels, the little book cart. And we had to go get a car, pick her up, and drive her on around. That's not acceptable. And I don't know what she did the rest of the day because I saw her as far as the choir room. That's not just happening to your permanently wheelchair-bound students. That's a student recovering from a surgery. And I could see her TENS unit through her skirt. So I know she wasn't feeling too good that day. The other thing is the asbestos issue. The classroom size, I know in Dr. Stein, one of his charts, and it's true, you know, classroom space requirements have increased. Arkansas State Facilities set standards that we're not meeting there. So to be able to remodel would mean breaking out a lot of those concrete walls and then dealing with abatement issues. Wiring is not appropriate for technology, and that is such a concrete building that getting a Wi-Fi signal, we put Wi-Fi drops all over, but it's still a struggle to get a signal. And now with the new courses and the new course requirements, you get too many people logged on at once and the system doesn't support them. So I could go on, but I think that's enough.
Why is there only one polling place?
Well, I talked to the county clerk about that, and we've had a lot of elections in this town in this calendar year, and there's still some more to go. There is a maximum that poll workers can make in any given year, and that's $1,200, according to what the clerk's office told me. And they have a shortage of poll workers, and they have to train poll workers. And so one of the things that she said to me was, even if you wanted to open more polling places, I don't think we could staff them all. But Harrison has always had the one polling place that I know of. It's been that way since I came here. We have early voting at the Duran Center. There's also absentee ballot available. The other thing is, for every polling site that we open, it's approximately $1,500 cost to the district. So that's more district funds that we would be expending to open more polling places, and that's money that right now I'm choosing to spend on kids.
Why is construction management needed for this project?
You want to answer that? You need somebody to coordinate the effort. And there's a lot of bid law and a lot of things that must be done properly and efficiently. And so with a project of this scope and size, you need somebody that knows what they're doing.
I'm hearing that the project was originally $18 million. Why is it now $27 million?
Well, we never had any cost estimates and it said $18 million. Early on in this process, when we were talking about what might it cost and what might we do and what's going to be required, that was all in conversation. There was nothing written out. We had not consulted yet. Our master plans had not been approved, but we were thinking, okay, maybe we could get it done for $18, $20 million or so forth. But as we got into it and we started counting square footage requirements, which is called POR, and as we started looking at head counts and who were in what programs, and then the city told us we had to build a road, and the project has just gotten bigger. But it's only, we've never said that's what it was going to be. We didn't have cost estimates at that point. We were just hopeful, for the sake of our voters, that we could do it for less. But we have found out that we can't.
What is being done to bring in and encourage rural voters?
Well, I know that the campaign committee has put on their Facebook, we've had advertisements in the newspaper, there's been other meetings across every civic group and everything that we can think of. There's still ads in the paper, and we're basically saying, please vote. And again, this includes anybody in our district. Look at your tax statement, and where it says your taxes goes, that's the district you're in.
Is there a sunset clause in the 4.9?
The 4.9 will fund a 30-year bond. And so Scott and Dan talk about this a whole lot better than I, but basically it's what's required to make the payment on your bond annually until it expires in 30 years. So elaborate.
There's nothing really to elaborate. The ballot says the tax is for 30 years. It automatically rolls off the books at the end of 30 years, separate another voter-approved extension or change.
Folks, lastly, there was a card submitted in the bowl that looked about like this room will look in 5 minutes. It had nothing on it. Let me just summarize by saying that I'm really happy to see you all here because you love this community. We all love this community. We all love our kids. We want to see them get what they deserve and get the best that we can offer them. They are our future. We want to make sure that everybody's being financially responsible. And that's what this forum was all about, so we could get all of the issues out and you could get your questions answered. On behalf of Patty and Georgie and the Chamber Board, I want to thank you all for being here, and I especially want to thank these folks that have come from near and far to be available to you to answer these questions. I thank you all for your patient attention and respectful demeanor toward all of this, and our meeting is adjourned. Have a good night. Please don't forget to